So, doing a walkthrough on a home before closing, I always get asked, when do you do the walkthrough? I do it the day of the closing. Usually meet about an hour and a half or so before the closing, depending on how far away the closing is, or the closing title company is to the house. And I always try to get to the appointment first before the client. So what I do is I like to check all the bathrooms. Those are key areas to check for water, especially around the toilets. So I check the bathrooms, make sure, including the shower, make sure that there's no water leaks. I make sure I turn on all the lights for the buyer because they're gonna be here soon. I definitely make sure that all the lights are on so that they can have a nice final walkthrough. I check the garage. I make sure that items that were supposed to be left behind are here. So we did include the refrigerator in the garage and the kitchen. And I make sure that exclusions were taken. So maybe like the exclusions would be like something attached to the wall. So the Tesla charger that it was attached here was an exclusion. So, and they did take it. If they left it, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm not the listing agent in this situation, I'm the buyer's agent. So, but I also make sure that things that were not listed as an exclusion are not taken. So, for instance, this alarm code or keypad, if it was not listed as an exclusion, that could be a boo-boo in the case if the buyer really wants it because they didn't list it as an exclusion and they took it. This is a big one. That's the AC Smart thermostat. And then like the door camera on the front. Ring doorbell, if they take that, but it was not listed as an exclusion. So you just want to make sure everything that they were promised to have is there. So like if there was a built-in TV and it wasn't listed as an exclusion, then you need to make sure that it's there. But there was no TV included on this sale. So, but just making sure we do our walkthrough. Also any repair items. So these electrical plugs, there's my closing gift that they opened. And I always do like a cutting board. I actually did a cutting board and have my logo, as you can see, transcribed on there. So, also the repairs. So these plugs were supposed to be fixed. I already got the receipt on that from the electrician, from the listing agent, but I tested the plugs. I actually used my laptop charger and I tested it to make sure it worked. So things like that, repairs, exclusions. See, the refrigerator's here. And pro tip, I always put my magnet card on the side of the fridge. Magnet business card on the fridge. And I put my keychain on the keys. Make sure you take the keys to closing with you. Ask the listing agent's permission first when you schedule the walkthrough with the listing agent. Because at funding, you can give them the keys. Funding means the money has been sent and released and confirmed, confirmation number, with the title company. And the title company or the lender will tell you when it's funded. And just make sure you check all the bathrooms, including the ones upstairs. I check the bathrooms, I look at the ceilings to make sure there was no water leaks. Of course, the clients are going to do that as well. I encourage them to check the whole house. And then I also check the windows is another big key, because rocks from like the mowers break windows sometimes, unfortunately, the day before closing. It's happened to me before. So I give a good look at the windows and encourage the clients to as well. So that's my take on a walkthrough. And now when the clients arrive, we do the walkthrough with the client, and then we go to closing. Typically they follow me to the closing. I'll text them the address just in case, and then they follow me to the closing. Ryan Realtor signing out. So at closing, which I just had, I just wanted to kind of go over a quick what happens and what to kind of do as your job. Of course, we just came from the walkthrough and went to the title company for the closing. But while I'm thinking about it, what I like to do is I like to do a property closing checklist. Usually the title company has it, or you can ask me for a copy. But WFG National Title has them. Usually they're somewhere in the title room or on the table, closing table. And basically it asks questions about the keys, how many, if there was any garage door remotes, keys, mailbox location, garage number of remotes, garage key code, door key code, alarm key code, trash days, recycle days, and if the current owner had any lawn care or cleaning services. So of course I always fill that out. That's kind of a reminder to make sure, if you're the buyer's agent, to get that information from the listing agent. You can even text them while you're here. The title lady is also, before closing, I'm going to go over the closing statement, or the CD, closing disclosure, also called a settlement statement. The CD or settlement statement or closing disclosure, it's called several different things, is or settlement disclosure, closing disclosure. You need to make sure that's matched up with your contract and your addendums, if there was any amendments that were done. So the seller is paying the closing costs, if it's correct according to the contract. If you negotiate any repairs during your inspection period, you need to make sure you get the receipts for that, or any money for the repairs. You need to make sure that's all there on the closing disclosure, as well as the sales price is correct, as well as the things the seller said that they would pay for is correct, as well as making sure all the prorations are correct and the closing fees are correct. So you need to make sure you go over that. I usually do that before closing. Like yesterday I did it, and then I did it in the kitchen at the walkthrough, and then there's a final time we go through it with the title lady when we were sitting here at the closing. And of course there's going to be other documents needing to be signed, such as the note, so they can see what they have to pay back the lender, and make sure that the deed has their correct name on it, as well as the deed of trust will have to be signed. There's some other documents that the lender requires, as well as the title company requires. So I wanted to make sure we went over this property checklist, the closing statement, and then what happens is when they're done signing, then the title company will send off the signed paperwork for what's called funding. Once they get a funding number, it's kind of like an authorization number, and then they can release the keys, which I've already got funding, so I gave them the keys along with a copy of their settlement statement, the survey, and this property condition closing checklist, as well as my keychain and my gift to them as well. So a thank you card, and I left the gift at the house at the closing. And then I get a picture to make sure I can post it on my social media. So make sure you get that picture. Make sure you get a picture of their house at the walkthrough so you can post it, and And that's all she wrote. Once you post your pictures, then you move on to the next transaction.